Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Sendra D, where we dive deeply and help you wake up to the essence of what it means to live a real, authentic, affluent life. Beyond the balance sheets, the bank accounts, the private jets, the political offices, into the realm of inner wealth and personal power. I'm Sendra D, your companion guide on this trajectory of truthful self-mastery as we celebrate your individuality and your sovereignty. Welcome to another fantastical, that's my new word, episode of Frankly Speaking with Sendra D on Sendra TV. My name is Sendra D. Today, of course, before I even introduce my guest, you probably know him well. He's probably the one that's been on this podcast the most because he's such a wealth of information and everything USA, everything, military security. But, he's been quite diverse. Of course, Lieutenant Colonel Jason Pike. Welcome.
Hey, welcome, Sendra D. I'm glad to be back on your show.
Well, fantastic. So that said, I would like to let you know why we are speaking today. So by the time you watch this episode, it will be the second week of January. But the 1st of January, there was an event which rocked the United States. There were two events, actually. And so before we get into that, I want the Lieutenant Colonel to please share with the audience, for those of you who have not seen him before, and I'm going to link his previous podcast below, so that you can view the first episode, which was his based on his book, his time in the military, and the second episode were about focusing on veterans, and all those could be linked in the description. But Lieutenant Colonel, can you tell the audience, for those of us those in the audience who are not familiar with you, tell them who you are, your background in military.
I'm a retired lieutenant colonel. I did 31 years in the Army. I've been enlisted, meaning at the low end, and I've been at the high end. I've lived in 5 different countries around the world. I've got 9 years of overseas time. I've got 3 books out, A Soldier Against All Odds, and then the Veterans Benefits book, and then Toxic Leadership book. So I'm an author and I'm writing another book. So jasonpike.org is my website where you can get the handles and see the blogs and the books and things. They're all on Amazon. So that's basically my background.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. So, of course, by now, those of you who haven't heard, there were 2 attacks. Some say are terrorists, some say are not, some say have ties to, some of these well-known groups outside of the United States. But what is more unique to this story is because both men had ties to the military. So, I believe both of them were still active duty. Is that correct?
No, that first one in New Orleans, he had gotten out. I think he had gotten out, but he had served a lot of years in the military. Mm-hmm. And the second one was really a surprise. That was in Las Vegas. He was on active duty, and he was a special forces sergeant, a master sergeant, which is pretty high up there.
Right. So the reason, why I feel this is important, because I have said, and I am not a negative person. I think I am one of the most motivational, positive, optimistic people on the planet. Of course, I do my part to contribute to the love and light that we should be sharing with one another. But I am very cautious because I do tend to lean on the side of there are still threats around the world. A lot of people are very angry against the United States for activities predating Trump. And so now that Trump is coming back, I think he's going to be pretty busy, let's just say, besides his own government keeping him busy. But I think, a lot of groups are being prepped to launch during Trump. I don't know who's behind these activities, but I have my suspicions. So today is not really about my opinion. It's really about the Lieutenant Colonel. So let's begin with the first. So do you recall which one occurred first? Was it the one in Louisiana? I believe that occurred first.
Yeah, Louisiana first, and then It was just some hours later. It was Las Vegas. So
Okay.
both on January the 1st. Yeah.
Okay, so January 1st, there were two. So the first one, let's begin with Louisiana. So tell the audience a little bit more about your deployments outside of the US and how you were engaging in these type of threat preventions and how why this makes you specifically well positioned to comment on what we're going to be about to talk about today.
Yeah, so after 9/11, after the September attacks, the main places I was in was Korea, South Korea, and also Afghanistan. So those were, and I did a deployment. The enemy in Afghanistan were called the Taliban. I don't even think at that time ISIS was around. So, but no, and I've had many, many, many different types of schools, strategic, tactical, and that's just part of the norm of training an officer, especially as they go up the ladder. So those are my qualifications for the most part.
Thank you very much. So we have two military, one already out of the military, one active duty. We're going to begin with the one that was already retired. He was officially retired. And he actually had a flag of ISIS on his vehicle before he went into the crowd. So this is someone, his name, the driver on that attack was I know it seemed to be a Middle Eastern Shasud Din Jabbar, who was 42 and he had served in the military from 2006 to 2015. You were still in the military, correct, during that time?
Yes, I was. I got out in 2014, so I was in the military during that time.
So he was deployed to Afghanistan in 2009, 3 US, so were you in Afghanistan during this time?
Yeah, I was in Afghanistan 2011 to 2012. I was later than him. Yeah.
Okay. So had you heard of him? Did you know anything about him? Had he made
No,
his mark on the military? Did he get any medals? I mean, did you ever even hear of him before January 1st?
never heard of him. No, I have not. Neither one of them.
Okay. So let's start with, okay, so we have this gentleman who actually, some people say black. I think he's, he's from the Middle East. And so I don't say that to say anything other than the fact that that's how they've identified him, because of course you can see his name, his being Shasud Din Jabbar. So do we know, was he born in the US?
Yeah, to my knowledge, he was born in the U.S. and he was a real estate agent down in Houston, Texas, or he was working in realty. I did see him on a YouTube program that came on, and so just advertising his realtor skills. Apparently, he had financial problems. I think he was converted over. Maybe he had sympathy for him, and that would be the convert. It was kind of like an attack for ISIS. But it does. I don't see how anybody would want to convert over to the Stone Age. The people that live out in the Stone Age or believe in the Stone Age things. But apparently that does happen.
Well, it does. Well, what crossed my mind when I heard about these two, because I tried. My New Year's resolution is to really stay out of the news. I've been so, I've been so pulled in, the last 7, 8 years that I have decided, for my peace of mind, for my sanity, and it's better for anyone out there that comes across me when I'm not full of information about what's happening out of Washington or relating to Washington, because I don't agree with, I would say 90% of what's occurring. I am one who says, first of all, on both sides, these wars needs to end. I am right in the middle because, my background is mediation and conflict resolution. But also, I believe that some of these instances that we are seeing in the US and around the world with terrorism is directly linked to our activities overseas. And that has got to stop. We need to get to a point where we can be sitting at the table. I don't know who can sit at the table with the Taliban and try to convince them, to become a little bit more US friendly. But that said, I was not paying attention to what was happening on January 1st. Of course, most people probably were with their families. But this came to my attention because I do tend to follow one of these well-versed podcasters in geopolitics. And he announced it. And of course, I had to go down the rabbit hole. This is why we have you here. So he was an average, he went out in the military, just like, you and I talked about. There was a book you wrote about how to get out of uniform. and get into civilian life. And so talk to me about what you think, because we do know that the rate of suicide in veterans is astronomical. Can you give me that number again? Is it 20 per day?
It's over, definitely over 20, between 21, 22 per day. This has been going on for many years. We've been trying to attack the. I don't have a magic bullet for it, but they are many nonprofits. The VA definitely. I mean, it's on the radar screen, and it's been on the radar screen for a while. But this is just that. I think that suicide in Las Vegas, that was really surprising to me because he was on active duty. He's an elite soldier in the special forces. He's a master sergeant. That was definitely a veteran suicide, apparently PTSD, post-traumatic stress. And so we're all familiar with that one. But it's just that he was so elite and he was so high ranking. Last year, I had a full colonel committed suicide. He was one of my friends I had served with. And he did it right outside of Washington, D.C. at Falls Church, Virginia. But these things, you know what? I think a lot of these things with PTSD is they've accumulated this stress and they built, it's like a dam breaking. And so they push it down, they push it down, they push it down. And then maybe their cat dies, or maybe there's one other thing in life that just tipped them over. And these are the things that happen. Yeah.
So there are two things that we're going to talk about, and there's a third. So we can, automatically people say, well, it's PTSD. People are just, not getting the right support. But also there's that component of, depression. Depression is something that it's difficult. PTSD you can hide, but depression you can't. The person has a low energy. I mean, I've dealt with depression myself because I've had multiple people pass on in my family, and I've witnessed people passing on. So there is a level of trauma that comes with that, which is sometimes uncontrollable. You can see the signs, but this is not a conversation about PTSD or depression. This is about the conversation about what we think happened that trigger, because I've had it. I definitely don't want to bring harm to other people when I am in that state of despair. That's what you feel just despair, hopelessness, not wanting to, not having the capabilities of envisioning a future that is better than where you are right now. So that's what despair is. It's like where I am right now is so unbearable that it's just got to stop. And I've said to people, suicide is never entering my mind. What does enter my mind when I am in these dark days is I just want the pain to stop. I want the struggle to stop. I want to be able to wake up every day and feel like I have some purpose. I have a mission. I have some hints of joy that can come my way. I don't have the full spectrum of joy. I just some hints of joy, a little bit of joy. So talk to us about, Lieutenant Colonel, can you talk to us about when you heard about this without having the analysts or the media impose their own opinion on it? Did you automatically think that this was definitely a nervous breakdown? Because that's really what this was, a nervous breakdown, of cognitive abilities to differentiate between right and wrong, because there is two sides of this, because right and wrong is clearly, well, if I'm going to do right, I'm going to help people, which is why people go into the military. But if I am doing wrong, I'm going to harm people. I was trained to kill the enemy combatant, and now I'm home, but I still have that urge to kill. And so what was it for you? Did you automatically come to a conclusion that this was a nervous breakdown, a full decomposition of a logical mind?
Yeah, I thought it was initially, I thought both of them were PTSD. I thought they snapped. But I felt bad of being a soldier because this was January the 1st and you got two events that occur with soldiers, Army, I'm Army. And so I said, wow, I can't believe I'm a soldier. You kind of feel a little bit bad for being a soldier because they did these bad things. Mm-hmm. And and then once I got into it, I said, okay, well, that guy was a convert, and that other guy, maybe like that other guy just snapped. That was just a veteran suicide that occurs, like we said, over 20 a day. So, but yeah, that's what I was feeling and thinking at the time. That one in Las Vegas, he was an elite soldier, master sergeant. Okay, he one more notch. He's the top, one of the top sergeants in the army. So command sergeant major is the only one up after that, and they are highly trained and they've got the best equipment. They handpick these folks, and
They're
that
Green
was
Berets, right? Talk to,
these were
talk
the
to
Green
us what that
Berets.
means to be a Green Beret. Could I be a Green Beret? Is it too late?
Yeah, I think you're past the age. So, but no, what it is. So what it is, they'll come in as a soldier, and then they have to prove themselves as a soldier. They'll stay a soldier for 4 years. When they get up to sergeant E5 as a sergeant, then they can try out to go to Fort Bragg. I think they call it now Fort Liberty. For some reason, they want to change all these bases to be politically correct. But they'll go over there and they'll go through a process of selection. And you're looking at maybe out of 100 people, maybe only 10 or 5 or 10 that make it. And it's very physical. They go through psychological testing. They do through, I mean, you can be the best physically good person, but if you can't get along with other people, then you're not in there. So they go through a whole lot of training. I mean, the Army puts a lot of money into these people, and that's what really surprised. I did serve in the Special Forces Group, 10th Special Forces Group, as a support person, and I jumped with them, I lived with them, and they are definitely hand selected. They're most of them are just cool people to be around. They're just that, because they have
So
to. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So you bring up a good point. So you think these people had a predisposition for their responsibilities, which was literally just to take them out, take the enemy out. And so I'm curious to think that the people training them, did they also train them? Did they give them some psychological tests before they were
No,
activated? Because I would think that if these people had this predisposition, that should have been detected to say, well, these people are not stable minds. Because I always say that the difference between the soldier returning home and resuming civilian life and the soldier coming home and getting depressed and suiciding themselves, or deleting themselves. You don't like the word suicide on YouTube, but whatever. So deleting themselves, or ending their lives. So that is because the PTSD started way before the military. Because I have known what PTSD is in my own household, and I'm very frank about, growing up with a military general. Let me tell you, that was no joke. You and I talked about that just before we started recording. My father was a very stern, very firm-handed, father, and I'm grateful for him. It makes me who I am. But again, you were like in boot camp constantly. So if, in that percentage of the population that grew up with a military man in their home, but there are parents that tend to terrorize their kids that end up, scarring them for life, which means that some of these people go into the military thinking that they're going to put on uniform and it's going to take all the demons away. Actually, it doesn't. It actually exacerbates those demons, right? Because if you go in the front line and you're dealing with something that is triggering to you and you push it down, all it's going to do is enhance the trauma until you can't contain it anymore. And I would think that's what happened. I haven't heard them talk about before they went into the military what exactly happened to both of them. So we're talking about the gentleman that I mentioned, and there was Matthew as well. Matthew, which also has a very long name. I'll call him Matthew L. For the sake of of not mispronouncing his last name. So Matthew L. was the Vegas bomber, but the other gentleman that we talked about, he was, what was his name? Masood Din Jabbar. So that was Louisiana. So talk about to me, and there are other facets of this conversations where they say that these were homegrown terrorists or homegrown people. Some of them were, and I'm going, you may or may not want to answer, because this is a Frankly Speaking with Sendra D. There's this third theory that says these people were, okay, so there's the first to say that they were working for overseas with overseas interests, terrorist interests. There is a second one that says these people were just plain old suicidal, and they were just wanting to end their life. They were in so much pain and they did what they did. But there's the third thesis, or the third premise, that they were actually part of some kind of a program that does this, because apparently I've heard, and I haven't verified this, it was similar to what Timothy McVeigh had done, and they were all part. The common denominator is they were part of Fort Bragg. What's going on in Fort Bragg? Why are those people like ending up in, against the population versus, what do you call it? Protect and defend is not the motto of the military. What is it again, sir?
Yeah, the special forces is yeah. I forgot the motto of the special forces, but yeah, protect and defend is one of the mottos. But yeah, I see what you're saying. That
It's
Fort
now it's
Bragg.
more like destroy and kill. But you're at home. So Timothy McVeigh from the Oklahoma bombing, and
Yeah,
he said he
he
was
was turned
innocent.
down. I think he had tried to go to special forces selection, but was somehow turned down.
But he
He
was
didn't.
in Fort Bragg as well, wasn't he? He was
Yeah,
in Fort
and
Bragg.
that's where they tried. Somehow he didn't make it. I think he went to Fort Bragg. Like I say, there's a high selection rate. He didn't make it. All right, I don't think he made it. I don't think. I
Didn't.
think he. Yeah, Tim McVeigh. I think that he tried out for it, but he was not selected. That's what I thought.
So this is so interesting to me because I mean, you gotta say, I don't hear about the other forts. Where did you get your start? Which
Well, yeah, Fort Sill, Oklahoma. I've been to Fort Benning, Georgia, jumping out of airplanes, and I've only visited Fort Bragg. I was only there for some training, but ROTC, Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland, South
Mhm.
Korea, multiple times South Korea, Germany, Landstuhl, Germany. But yeah, that's kind of been to many posts. Yeah.
So there are two things here. Again, with the three. So the first one is, let's look at that hypothesis. This one says that they were inspired by and radicalized by overseas factions such as the Taliban or ISIS or Hezbollah. I'm just naming them all because I don't know exactly who. I know there was an ISIS flag in Louisiana on the car. So we're just gonna name them all, right? Because I think they're all interlinked. I don't know. I don't think I think they're like, they're like subdivisions of a bigger control unit. So that's the one. Can you talk on that? Do you think that could be? What's the percentage? What in your mind? And I'm asking you, Lieutenant Colonel, tell me if you think really how much weight does that conclusion have in your mind?
You're talking about a convert to either the Taliban
Correct.
or the ISIS or the
Yes.
Al Qaeda.
Correct.
Yeah, I was over there. I don't see how anybody could. I mean, apparently he was on social media and he maybe had a sympathetic mind to him, and maybe he served over there for a period of time and maybe became sympathetic. Maybe he already had the sympathy for those ISIS or Al Qaeda, what have you, before he did that. But yeah, that was just a convert. Maybe he had a Middle Eastern, name. Maybe he has family over there. I don't know, but that does seem bizarre to convert to such a backwards type of organization, or it's the Stone Age, going back to the Stone Age. But
Right. Well, we're not.
apparently that does happen. That's what I was watching to say that does. But I can't imagine that happening, especially to the soldiers that have to go serve over.
So I'm a big fan of the show called Homeland. Do you remember Homeland?
Don't remember that.
That was on HBO. That's where
Okay.
Claire Danes, she was a CIA agent, and Carrie, she was like a psychopath, agent that was on drugs, like meaning her pharmaceuticals. And she was a manic depressive or something, but she was a badass CIA agent. And she fell in love with this, returning soldier who had been converted into Islam. And she became infatuated with him. They ended up having this love story, but he was working for those foreign factions, those terrorist factions. And that's the story that I'm hearing here. That's what came to mind. So there's a little thing called predictive programming where they kind of, put it in us, we are familiar with it by the time we finish watching a series or an episode or something or a movie, and then it happens in real life. So you're saying that you don't see how that could happen, but it can. I mean, it's
Yeah.
reasonable. But let's talk about the second one. The second one could be, the second hypothesis would be just someone who's just lost it, who just really had a bad case of PTSD. But what's just unfathomable is two from the same unit on the same day. That is, I mean, that's beyond strategic. That's beyond universal coincidence. That's beyond synchronicity. As spiritual as I am, I don't believe in these kind of coincidences, which leads me now to the third thesis, and you can speak on that and you cannot if you want to. There are some who say, and I have to be cautious to say some who say because I'm just reporting what I have heard, and not in the form of people who are very well versed in the subject matter. There was Sean Ryan who interviewed a gentleman who had him on, and I can't remember the name of this gentleman, but I'll look it up. So this gentleman was saying that he received a email on the 31st from Matthew L. From Matthew, who was in the Vegas experience. He was in the Vegas, and his name was, he had Sam Shoemate. Do you know him? Sam Shoemate. He's a CIA analyst. So
I don't
he
know him.
said
No.
that Matthew L was, and this got 3.6 million views, and he got an email stating that Matthew was in fear for his life because he said that the intelligence community was chasing him, and he was fearing for his life, and he had to leave the United States. And of course, so it's Matthew Livelsberger. I say Matthew L because I just don't want to keep mispronouncing. So he is saying that Matthew sent him a correspondence the day before saying that he was being followed by the three-letter agencies, and he was afraid, in Homeland Security, he was afraid that because he was going to be a whistleblower for what was happening with the drones in New Jersey. You heard about that?
Heard about the drones in New Jersey.
The drones in New Jersey, and because he was a Trump supporter, he was trying to warn Trump. He wanted to get Sam Shoemate to give him access to Sean Ryan's podcast, Fox News podcast, and all the major outlets so that he could be a whistleblower on the activities with the drones. And I don't know, he read the letter on air, and if anybody wants to, I'll link that podcast down below as well, so that you can go see for yourself and hear for yourself. So that's what got me curious, because Sean is he's an ex-military guy as well. I don't think he would have just anyone in his show who's spreading lies, who's spreading propaganda. But I have myself, I'm curious as to how much weight in your mind, Lieutenant Colonel, do you think that this gentleman, Matthew Livelsberger, has had communicated with Sam Shoemate regarding some intel that he had regarding the drones. Apparently, these people were out to take out, Donald Trump, because apparently those drones were hovering over, Trump golf course in New Jersey. Do you know anything about that? I'm giving you some facts.
I have not read about that, but this whole thing could just be one pushing point. He already had and that could just be the pushing point. I don't know anything of the Trump with the drones. I've heard about them, but I don't know anything more than that. But it could just be something that was stressing him out, that just pushed him over the limit.
So you're saying that he was so concerned about what was happening, and he just wanted to. There are some conclusions that said, well, maybe it wasn't even him in the car that blew up. Do you know if they need DNA?
Yeah. I think the latest I heard is they don't know 100% because it was so burned up.
Well, the funny thing is, and of course, I hate to smile doing this podcast because, of course, these are very dire times, and if this is just the beginning for us on January 1st, I mean, that's like a warning, like this is the year that all this is going to happen. I want to be very serious about this to say that, well, how come his license survived this explosion? Because I don't know about your license. Mine doesn't have any superpowers to survive a Tesla explosion. Because if you're going to explode in a Tesla, that means it takes out the whole car. That little license that they provide at the DMV, I don't think they have any kind of, Teflon protection for it to just. Nothing else survives except the driver's license that identifies. That would be suspect to me, wouldn't you say? I mean, you've been in, front lines where.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. The body was burnt. The weapons were almost unidentifiable.
But the license.
And how did
survive?
that thing? And the license and the credit. Apparently, the passport and the license survived.
So I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right. So that's where I'm standing until they give me. I have questions. I have a question about, are they trying to take us on another wild goose chase? Because I say to them, the invisible thems that push our buttons and keep me up at night because, they are saying it's coming, and you're like waiting for it. Those people, I have a question for you. What else you got planned? What is this?
I see your point.
Go ahead.
I see your point. The body was not identifiable, and so we don't even really know if it's him. But Apparently, if they had more than a 90% suspicion it was him because they put his name out there, I don't think they would want to violate the families and all. But who knows? Who really knows until they actually get the confirmed DNA evidence if they're going to be able to get it?
So let me just say, I do believe that 50% of what we see has been concocted just to. Before we dive back in, it is a pleasure to tell you that my book, Sendor Inner Luxury, Unlock the Secret to Your Luxurious Self, now on Kindle and as well as on paperback. So feel free to rush and get a copy for your loved ones. In addition, if you are loving these extraordinary conversations about luxury, about balance, about emotional intelligence, about a little bit of politics, a little bit of spirituality, if you're loving all of it, well, rush to Amazon and get my book. You will learn emotional balance is from within. You will learn to elevate yourself to the frequency that you wish to express in the world. So there can be more love, more peace, more harmony. Well, there's more. You can rush to pre-order my next book, which is Sendor, Guide to Luxury Living and Emotional Balance. Well, for me, my brand is all about living from within, emotional balance, emotional intelligence, and luxury. And for me, these books are flowing endlessly from me to you with so much love. Let me know what you think. Let me know after you read it. Put a comment, put a review. And I know I'd love to hear
from
from you. In some of these operations, and you've worked and on both sides. You are now a retired lieutenant colonel, but you have an oath to the military. There are some things you've seen that you can never disclose.
Yeah. You're thinking it's a mission within a mission. In other words,
right.
Yeah, let's
So
concoct,
this is
yeah,
this
so
is what
like
you call a psyop. You know what? I
Yeah.
have a message for these people. Just take a pause. Take a pause. We've been psyoped enough. We've been psyoped enough.
Mhm.
We just want the truth. Give us a little bit of truth before you start rolling us into your psyops again, because we're still processing 2024. I'm still questioning whether or not Trump was a psyop. Those 2 assassinations attempts, with the fist up in the air, and I'm like, okay, I'm not for violence, but you got to know. I mean, it's like, what is true and what is not true at this point? The drones, it keeps on coming. Even the Ukraine thing, I'm questioning. Is like, you have this man in this green outfit constantly who's giving interviews, and he doesn't look like a man who's at war. He looks more like he's on a set of some movie somewhere. And so I look at this situation and I say to them, what is the thing that you're trying to distract the population from? What is the actual situation that we should be paying attention to, that you want us to not pay attention to? Lieutenant Colonel,
I see what you're saying.
got a possibility that this could be just a psyop distraction from something. Because
I mean, in the Army, what we would do is, I remember I went up to Canada in the Special Forces group, and we would say we're going to cold weather training, but behind the scenes, we were doing some snooping and pooping on drug runners or people trafficking weapons. So those things do occur. A mission within a mission will, and actually, but it's true. We did go to do cold weather survival training, but behind the scenes, we do something else. I was working with the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, and they were co-located with us, and we would give them pictures and information, but I remember one time asking them, hey, what are y'all going to do with these photographs? And he says, well, that's the need to know. We're not even going to know. So even though I was on active duty in the Special Forces, if you don't have a need to know something that's going on, you're just not going to know about it. I'm sure people high up there know about it, but I was not in the need to know. And they said, just a need to know basis. That's all you need to know. You don't need to know what we're going to do with these pictures. So, but that's called mission within a mission. You can deploy to go to a country, but behind the scenes, you'll have an element to go out and do something else. Yeah.
Well, I have a need to know.
Mm-hmm.
I got a need to know. So to the 3-letter agencies, I got a need to know to why you're so evil. Why are you determined to destroy humanity? I got a need to know that. I got to need to know as to why the average citizen should be paying for your escapades. Your little psychopathic missions and adventures. I think you get a thrill out of this. I don't even think it's even a serving the United States anymore, all these escapades. I think you've turned so delusional in your mind, and I'm speaking to the three-letter agencies. I think they become so delusional and so psychopathic in their mind, they can't survive in a time of peace. They've got to have chaos all the time. But for someone who actually I thrive in peace, I'd like to find a way to not have to coexist with you because the population can no longer take it. We can't handle this anymore. The PSYOP has got to stop. We have to call this out. And, this is to Trump. I say, since you put, Kash Patel in charge, or you're putting them, who knows if he'll get confirmed, this administration, you've got to do things differently because the population that you are going to serve have had enough. You've had enough. You say you are the president. That's time of peace. Show me put your money where your mouth is. Show us that the United States of America, who voted for you, Donald Trump, are going to be happy with the results in 4 years, that you will bring more peace than chaos on this planet. Because what happened on January 1st, apparently, there are rumors that say he was trying to warn you that the war was coming, and then they killed him. Or who knows, he might be on Epstein's island. But who knows where they keep people now who they don't want to be seen or found. Please put these people out of their misery. Convert them. Let's convert them to goodness. Let's stop having all these converts to terror. Let's have these converts turn into find the light, find the peace within themselves. Because I do feel if you're still on the planet, I feel like there's hope for you yet. Not everybody's lost. Even the ones who are detained in Guantanamo, there is a way to find these people peace. So that said, I know I'm going on a rant. I'm just had enough. So that's why, thank you so much for bringing us to speed with these two events. And I wanted to speak a little bit to the audience about, I want to know what you think really happened and what you think is to come, because we have terror on our soil. And I feel like the terror is homegrown. It's not necessarily outside faction. I do feel what a PSYOP is. It's a real event that they use to their benefit. They maximize the opportunity based on the chaos. So now that we've had in our mind that terror is really happening on United States of America, talk about us. How do we prepare? How do we prepare for such events? Because, the biggest one was 9/11, right? So there are rumors about that was our government that did that. But I tend to lean on the side that, our government, not you, sir, but I'm talking about the people that get elected and the people that the three-letter agencies are not necessarily working for the American people. So
But that's kind of going beyond my scope as far as those three-letter agencies. I've never worked in them. I've worked side by side with the CIA, but these are top secret people. There's certain things they won't ever say to anybody. And so I've only got a security clearance. I don't have top secret security clearance. So they're in a different element, a different zone of working. I've never worked in the agencies. Mm-hmm.
Right. So I would like to, I was recruited by Navy intelligence once upon a time after I finished my graduate. I know, but they said I aged out. Can you believe I would probably be, Matthew Lovitzberger, and because I would tell the truth, I would be, frankly speaking. And so, because they came and I was doing my master's in conflict analysis and resolution in international peacekeeping. And I had a friend I don't remember what her role was, but next thing I knew, there was a Navy recruiter who was going to process me through Navy intelligence. I actually started the process to get into Navy intelligence. And they said I would have aged out. I don't know how old you have to be, but apparently I was aged out. So that said, I think I would have been a very good interrogator. I would have been. And I have a few questions for these people. I have to say, how do you sleep at night? How do you sleep at night knowing the chaos that you're bringing on this planet? I have to say, do you have children that are going to come after you, grandchildren? Do you know what your activities are causing these future generations? And not only that, do you know how much the military industrial complex is charging the average American person to go to these wars, to go to these, to take out these leaders? You know what? And on the topic of Haiti, there's all sorts of crazy activity in Haiti, and I have no doubt that it's caused by the three-letter agencies. Yeah, I'm talking to you. So you need to stop. You need to stop. Let these people have peace. The United States. I say to people, Lieutenant Colonel, that what's happening around the world, because what happens is these people go get their training wheels off overseas first, and then they come home and they implement the same practices against the American people. And that's the beginning of it. All these people that are coming through the border, let's talk about that. Could it be that some of these people are preparing to, I've heard that a majority of these people are military age men. Why?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't. I know they come across the border. I worked down at Fort Bliss near the border with the Centers for Disease Control, but they're coming across basically from all different countries. It's not just we call it Mexico. A lot of Nicaraguans, El Salvadorans,
Haitians,
Honduras. They coming out of China,
Venezuela, but also Middle
Colombia,
Eastern and
Venezuela. Yeah, so we got a Venezuelan gang in San Antonio, which is a pretty big gang. But yeah, but yeah, you know what? I just think it's open borders, and I think they're just find a way to get across.
What's the
Yeah.
solution? How do we prepare?
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely going to have to put more money into the wall and the enforcement of the border, and allow the border folks to do their job. Maybe they're hindered, but if you've got, yeah, well, Rumsfeld used to say you can't defend 100% of everything 100% of the time. There's going to be leaks, so there's going to be things that they can get through. I mean, you can build all the walls you want, and you can have all the airplane, but just we probably got laws and we've got rules to keep them out, and just enforce what we've got to keep them out. But they're still, it's never. But that border it's been porous for years and years, and yes, in the past 4 years it's definitely been very very porous. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about the border. And I don't think there's a conspiracy to get fighting age men in here. I think anybody coming from these countries they don't want to be a part of, they're just coming in and trying to find a better life, I think, is what they're trying to do.
Is that what they're trying to do? Well, I have no doubt that a lot of people coming across the border are looking for an improved way of being. So, but I do say that there are people who are coming across who have bad intentions, but I'm more concerned about those who are paid to protect us, and that's Homeland Security, that's FBI, CIA is first of all not supposed to be operating on American soil, but the FBI is not supposed to operate on foreign soil either. But there they are in Haiti investigating president killing. So you got to make sense of that. I think the tables have just gone completely up, down, sideways. But I want to talk about for the average American who wants to, or the average person within these borders who are concerned about the escalation that we're seeing now that started with January 1st. What do you think they need to do? Let's forget the government because they're useless. So I've said it. Yeah, they are absolutely useless. I don't count on you. I don't have high hopes for you. I just think you are just, wasting the taxpayer money. You are too big. And, once Donald Trump said he was decrease the size. I can't wait for that to happen. I'm channeling my libertarian inner self to say that stop these big governments. They are taking all the. How about we take care more of the veterans who need them? So many homeless people that are, that serve the military. That is a disgrace. The fact that we're paying these overzealous bureaucrats is a waste of my taxpayer. And I have a suggestion for the IRS. I think you should just put a multiple checkbox at the bottom of where I send my check to, because that way I could choose whether it's going to be spent on education, on healthcare, on infrastructure, etc. I should get to choose how I want to spend my money. But I digress. I do digress. Lieutenant Colonel, how do we prepare? What's the average citizen supposed to do when, because I think it's just getting started. So what are some of the signs that you can look for? And if you're an average person living in a suburban area, I'm not saying go and report your neighbor, but I'm saying what kind of signs? I mean, if you see someone who has tendencies, what are we looking for? I mean, I don't want to be paranoid about because now they have just made it clear that someone who is, according to them, I say, air quotes, dangerous or terror oriented, they could be looking like you and I, because now they are Americans, right? So that's the message. The concern is the average person in this country now is going to be profiled as a terror. So does that mean that anyone could be arrested now under the Patriot Act, taken into a black site, beaten to death with no representation? Is that where we're going with this? Because before, it used to have a certain type. They had a certain type. Their fetish was for the Middle Eastern. But now it seems like they've expanded the fetish to have a passion for just anyone who's walking and breathing in the United States, because we just saw that one was a Caucasian man who served his country, still active, but now they're saying he was a terrorist. So what does that mean for some of us who are trying to function in a society and still feel safe within these borders. I would say within the West itself, because it has to be, we have to expand it to Europe because, Europe is not immune to these type of attacks as well.
I think just situational awareness. Be aware of your surroundings and the places that you go to. They say nothing ever happens good after midnight. And just, I think you need to just live your life without all the thinking of conspiracies and things of that nature. That's just going to clog your brain up anyway, because you don't know what you don't know, but just be situationally aware and as safe as you can. But yeah, like I say, you're not going to be able to avoid all threats all the time. They wanted to do something, they'll do it. And but I do think that we still have our liberties, and I think we can still walk down the streets and go to the restaurants and just live our lives normally without being in fear of the government. But that's just my thoughts on it.
Your thoughts are valid, sir. Your thoughts are valid and powerful, and I appreciate that. But I also say to the audience, leave the conspiracy theories to me. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but they've pushed me so much because I question everything. You know what? I started off as a little girl questioning my daddy. My daddy was always telling me to do something, and I was just like, nope, sorry. So you've heard it here, audience. And Lieutenant Colonel Jason Pike was, he fulfilled my request to do a spontaneous conversation. We were going to do the slide, but I decided no. I didn't announce it early enough to be able to live. We can do another live. Well, how about we do another live, after during the inauguration? That would be a great live, don't you think? Let's do that. So audience, stay tuned. We will do a live on inauguration day when President Trump is getting sworn in. We can have some tidbits from you as well. So prepare for that day. I think it's January 21st. That said, I want to say thank you for joining us. And you've heard it here. There are a few theories that we could actually go through. The top two remains, that they were either radicalized, or which I doubt, or government. I think underneath both of them is the PTSD and depression, but the main two is, were they corrupted by the government that they serve to do these acts to distract us from other situations or from other events? But also, could it have been radicalized by other outside foreign factions? So you audience, you decide. You tell me what you think, because I really want to hear your voice. I want to say thank yous to Lieutenant Colonel Jason Pike, as always, from Texas, man.
Yes.
Sir, thank
Yes.
you. I salute you. Thank you for your service. How can they reach you, sir?
JasonPike.org is my website, and got 3 books. I got audiobooks. I am the narrator and the author of 2 of them. That's where you can find me.
All right. And what's the name of the book, sir?
A Soldier Against All Odds is the first book. That's the most popular book. And then the transitioning book, Out of the Uniform, Back into Civilian Life. And then my third book is about toxic leadership. It's called Leading Through the Crossfire. Yep. That's where you can find me.
Thank you so much. And do you have a Twitter account or X account?
I do, but I forgot the handle. I haven't been on there for a long time.
All right, Google him. He's famous. And I've made him famous. This is his fourth appearance. We haven't released the one on toxic leadership. That should come probably in a couple of weeks. But this episode, by the time it airs, it will be Tuesday. It would be almost a week after the events that occurred. If you have any insight, more information, if you want to speak to me, come on there, talk about it. Let me know. But I want to say thank you for joining me on the Frankly Speaking with Sendra D show. We will link all of Lieutenant Colonel's website information in the previous podcast that he's done with me at the bottom on the description. Thanks again for being a fantastic supporter of this channel, Sendor TV. We love you so much. And until next time, stay safe, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you.
So thanks for watching. Of course, I just want to remind you, first of all, I want to say thanks for watching. But I want to say from my heart, Sendra D, I want to remind you to grab your copy on Amazon and let me know what your thoughts are, what feedback you have, what you would have liked me to speak about. Of course, we're on this journey together. So Amazon, Kindle, paperback, Sendor Inner Luxury. And for those of you who are ready to dive even deeper, you can get ready because there's more coming. Sendor Guide to Luxury Living and Emotional Balance. That's going to be available very soon. So stay tuned. Keep watching. I will announce. You follow me on my social medias as I tease a little bit of this and a little bit of that for your highest good. Remember, luxury isn't just a lifestyle. It is absolutely a mindset. And I don't know about you, I want my mindset to reflect all of the highest frequencies available to us humans. Till next time, don't forget, grab your copy on Amazon, Sendor Inner Luxury, unlocking the secret to your luxurious self. Until next time. Oh, and don't forget, subscribe to Frankly Speaking with Sendra D's podcast and join us every week as we uncover the stories of those who triumphed over life-altering challenges to achieve not just financial success, but a richer, a deeper, a more altruistic life. It's about time we redefine what it means to be a truly affluent individual. Don't you agree? So come and join me. And let's be unstoppable on this journey called life. Because here, affluence isn't just a buzzword. It's a path to waking up to your authentic being.